and as education is the foundational part of everything, so but we are looking at environment and education. So Prafulla Dhal sir and all of you are in your own ways. You contribute to both, because educating people about environment and also focusing on education as a developmental tool. Professor Prafulla Dhal talks about both climate change and its children education. And Madam Abha Mishra ji, you speak on, you are now focusing on environment and climate change, resilient climate resilience. And you are also talking about education as a catalyst for global development. So kind of education being the catalyst for sustainable development goals. So that is one, that is your USP. And then Ranjan Pandaji comes with experience of bringing climate education to young people, which Prafulla Dhalsar also does. And
Um,
yeah,
one Kamal, you were mentioning what do you want me to focus on? Basically, you were saying.
I'm saying that you are from the UNDP with your development understanding of global development goals. That is one. Second, how education is crucial for sustainable development goals. Education for SDG. Education
But
means
I think that was already talked about na, on the previous days by UNICEF and others.
yes, they talked about it, but UNICEF only Lopamudra ma'am came, who spoke about the UNICEF Odisha team has not come, which is on 19th. So they will speak on children as part of SDG, not education. They're talking about child as central to SDG, or how the SDG goals are connected to
Mm-hmm.
children. So we are here focusing on education as a catalyst for development and sustainability. That is one. And second, how environmental education can be crucial in achieving that. So this they keep us informed when it is live.
So Ranjan sir has joined. Ranjan Mahanti sir is having some issues with the internet and he will be joining soon. So
Ranjan sir, namaste, welcome.
Namaste. Thank you so much.
and we are just
Thank you.
going live on Facebook page of Honorable MP Sujit Kumar and also
Right,
our partner Kalinga Kusum Foundation's Facebook page.
right. Thank you, Sujit. Thank you, Swadesh Kumar. And you keep us informed when it is live. I will start with the brief introduction about the series and about our experts. Then we'll go and have a discussion.
Huh? नहीं. नहीं.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning from wherever you're watching. We are live on Facebook page of Honorable MP Sujit Kumar. Welcome to the Global Development Dialogue series, under which this is the second in series. And this International Children's Week with the theme of children and SDG, we welcome you to this special session on children, education, and environment. In this session, we will be interacting with 5 eminent personalities who will bring their insights from their work experience, from their practice, from their readings, and from their interventions, and from the contributions they have made in their respective fields. I'm Kamla Kantadas from the MP Sir's office of Sri Sujit Kumar, welcoming you all to this special edition. This edition was conceptualized by MP, Honorable MP Sir Sri Sujit Kumar, to take forward discussions on socio-economic, political, and sustainable developments in India and around the world. In this context, we're having this International Children's Week to understand different facets of children and their interaction with the SDGs. We have a decade of action for us ahead, which is 2020 to 2030. In today's session, we have Abha Mishra ma'am, we have Prafulla Kumar Dhal sir, we have Ranjan Kumar Panda sir, we have Ranjan Kumar Mahanti sir. And let me introduce with Abha Mishra ji. Abha Mishra ji is the current head of UNDP Odisha, a development sector professional with decades of experience working in different segments of development in India and in Odisha, now with a specific focus on climate change, resilience, and also looking at how climate change is impacting the coastal districts of Odisha. So with the development experience of decades, bringing down to understand how climate can be impacting negatively to the coastal citizens of Odisha. So Abha Mishra ji, welcome to the Global Development Dialogue series, and we'll be listening to you intently to understand and get your insight to the issues of climate change, children, and education. So the session is titled as Education and Environment. So you can read it as if, right, how environment has become part of education and how it should have been and how it should be. Environmental education is an essential part. People say education is important for sustainability and environment is central to education. Without environment, there is no education. So National Curriculum Framework 2005 advanced this idea of embedding environment in education. And before that, the National Education Policy of 1986 also had taken that forward. So we can understand from the National Education Policy, new education policy, what is happening on that. Next in the line, I would like to welcome Sri Ranjan Panda sir, who is a well-known climate activist, convener of water initiatives, convener climate combat climate change network of India, Mahanadi River waterkeeper, and first Green Hero awardee. So he's a sociologist, an anthropologist in education and training, has about 3 decades of experience facilitating several initiatives, starting from grassroots to national as well as South Asia levels to promote water, environmental conservation, climate change advocacy. I'm aware that he conducts several training programs under Youth for Water campaign and does several training programs of journalists and young people in the school and colleges on climate change education. Welcome. This is a brief profile. Ranjan Panda sir has a big profile. If you can read, that will go for perhaps another 10-15 minutes. So Ranjan Panda sir, we are incredibly fortunate to have you and have your consent to participate in this discussion and dialogue. May I go to Professor Prafulla Kumar Dhal, who is GM and State Head of CSR JK Paper Mills of Odisha, and also a visiting professor at Sri Sri University, Faculty of Management Studies, and a director, founder director of the Climate Change and Sustainability Education Center at the Sri Sri University in collaboration with climate reality project of United States of Nobel laureate Al Gore. Mr. Prafulla Dhal is a well-known strategist in climate and education and sustainability and environment, specialist on public policy in India spanning over close to 3 decades. He is the general manager and state head CSR JK Paper companies of Odisha, companies in Odisha. He has served as senior consultant to leading consulting firms, including the EY, as a lead World Bank missions in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. He has worked for several international organizations like UNDP, USAID, UNFPA, and several others. Professor Dhal is especially keen on developing strategies for youth engagements and also creating green entrepreneurship in non-conventional areas. He is also the coordinator of River of World Foundation in United States and India, and is continuing to work for the water conservation. Professor Dhal has been a task force member for Vision 2020 of Government of Odisha. And apart from all of this, he continues to connect to young people in the school and colleges and also through media. I would like to request after Professor Dhal, I would like to introduce Mr. Ranjan Kumar Mahanti, a professional with 30 years of committed long-standing experience in the development sector with expertise in planning, management, monitoring, evaluation, policy research, and community mobilization. Presently working as a secretary and chief executive of Peacock, a leading environmental organization, a leading development organization committed for marginalized sections of society, including children, women, and older persons. And under Peacock, under his active leadership, he has developed models on food sovereignty, built up movement for eradication of child labor, safety of children in different setup, promotion of literacy and education, promotion of material and child health, protection of environment, and empowerment of youth and for social change. Thank you so much. These people are legends in their own work, not less than 30 years of work for each of them. So they have done extraordinary work in their fields, including the fields which are today the top topic of focus, which is children and environmental education. So I would like to go first with Professor Prafulla Dhal to make an introductory remark for 5 minutes. So the round of discussion will be like this: introductory remark for 5 minutes on education and environment and children. And then we'll come back to the discussion on having what is there on environment education according to the NCERT, according to the education policy, and where do we go from here, and what challenges are there. So a kind of 2-3 rounds of discussion will happen. So first is 5 minutes for Professor Prafulla Dhal to his brief introductory remarks on the topic. Thank you, Professor Dhal.
Thank you, Professor Das, my co-panelist Ranjan Pandaji, Ranjan Mahanti ji, Mr. Madam. It is a great opportunity to share my thoughts with the audience, and I think at the outset, it's a great feeling from my side that Mr. Sujit Kumar, Honorable MP, even if he's politically very active, he has not left his developmental discourse, organizing discourses and his development, thought-provoking activity. Happy to see his activeness and seriousness in taking the emerging topics for public discourse and organizing global dialogues on this. Since I have to share my introductory remarks, I have concerns I would like to present in the beginning. As you all know, children and child education and environment is not properly saved as per the need of the time, though the process has initiated and everybody is talking about children should know the environment and they should engross to the environmental issues, develop the curiosity and understand the subject and come out with the solutions. That is yet an unfinished task, and it is going a huge responsibility from all concerns. That is one part of the story. The second one is education as such, a fundamental right of every children. Accessing that and the learning opportunities from the system is yet a biggest challenge for various reasons. Having said that, I was as a researcher on climate change and sustainability in practice. I was just calculating and documenting certain and figures and data, and I found if business as usual continues, I see that children having this problem, 40 to 45% of children in India are going to face existential crisis by 2030, which would be putting tremendous pressure on them accessing education, side apart that environmental education. So this is one of the biggest concerns for me, that children gradually moving out of the education stream for various existential realities posed by climate realities, be it poverty or be it hunger, food insecurity, water insecurity. If you just analyze each and every SDG goals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14, 13, 14, like that, you will see this is a kind of things are happening. In Odisha by 2030, I could see that over 2.5 million children will be facing that existential needs because of extreme weather events, be it waterlogging or disasters or any other things. So this is a kind of assessment what we have done to see that this is a problem that children are going to face various problem due to environmental degradation and climate change. So this is one stream of thoughts that I have to share with you, that in this context we have to design our education and our developmental programs so that children should realize their rights at least to a certain extent what has been given to us. The second area is children as the active citizen in the field of environment or combating climate change. In fact, which as part of the climate reality, CRP India and USA, we have initiated 2-3 successful projects like Green Campus and digital learning. And though digital learning has a tremendous issues, I see that accessing the technical devices is a bigger problem. In Raigada and southern Odisha, southeastern Odisha, I did a study. Only 8% of household is having their mobile access, and side apart, the electricity reliability is a problem. Internet is a problem. So many other problems. Accessing education, this Corona or COVID time, this has given another dimension, because one of the objectives also in the SDG is a digital mode of transformations of society for keeping at 2050 at the year. The third issue which I could see that if you see the education and environment, I see that there is a fundamental change has not happened in terms of the content of the education. So it is very, very soft. Why? What is very, very soft? When you say that climate change and environment people say very passive mode. In the climate change, people take an active mode. And secondly, we have not brought radical change in the classroom transactions. One part of the students are not access to classroom, that is one issue because of various reasons. At the same time, whatever is there, the content or environment content is not very, very rightly put forth, where the people can show their interest to learn more and do the things. So this is one of the other things that I see happening. And this thing, I'm going to propose that if there should be a climate change national program for children in schools rather than education program in schools, that would be more meaningful things, because I've seen the national climate change education program can bring more results rather than only the environment. Because I have seen that, I have taught the children in schools, I have gone to the campus and given them the climate change, business and sustainability education. So I've seen a lot of young minds are completely silent about understanding the climate realities, which is impacting and affecting their lives. Because here what we want, one thing is that understanding, develop that curiosity to know more, do research, innovate the solution to one side of things. The second thing is, I've seen that learning from nature and learning with nature, this dimension has to be taken seriously. Today, what we are doing is learning from nature, because reading textbooks, doing this, X, Y, Z, doesn't give much knowledge to the students. What I see that students by learning by doing or interacting with the nature and knowing the things is very, very important. Say, for example, in Delhi, there is a air pollution. In Odisha, there is a water pollution. In some other areas, forest degradations. They're more into those issues in their day-to-day life, but no content in their, things are available there. So I think these are the things to be taken seriously. And young people today are looking forward. I think if you see that everybody has been monetized, people keep talking about education value in terms of whether he is economically engaged or not in post-education time. I think I see a lot of jobs in green economy that need to be explored and to be transmitted to the children at different stages. If something can happen. So I think, having said that, my introductory note, I would look forward that how Mr. Sujit Kumar as an MP, because we have got enough evidence to justify those things. In Odisha, it's a case in point that climate crisis is impending, and we have, in spite of having 3 to 4 state-level climate change action plans, we have not been able to do much in the ground, and that can only be possible when children or young people can understand the issues and demand from the state or do the things in the ground. Thank you very much. I'll share some of more points in my next round. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dhal. You made very pertinent points. One is the climate crisis and its impact on children. Close to 2.5 million children are going to be affected. And digital medium, what impact it will have on children. Then you talked about that why we need to transform our environmental education, go in the more activist mode of to learn about climate change, and not just understanding climate environment around us. So that is what is a very transformative suggestion, I think. And the last one, a kind of an assessment of the Odisha's climate sales work, which requires much to be done in that context. So I take that as a comment, and three segments you have given very useful comments on that. With developing from there, let me go to Ranjan Panda, sir. You are someone like Professor Dhal who are engaged in educating people and talking to stakeholders. You are someone who is an activist, who is a researcher, who is a document specialist who documents what is happening around us, and you are a water specialist. People call you Waterman, so you're popularly known as Waterman of Odisha. So, Ranjan sir, how do you see on the comments that Professor Dhal has made? Would you like to add to that, or add anything that is you have in your mind on these things, how environmental education is doing today, and how do we need to approach that? Over to you, around 6 minutes for you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Kamalakanto Das. Thank you, Sri Sujit Kumar ji, for organizing this very important and timely discussion during the Children's Week. And I'm also happy to see my friends Prafulla ji, Abha, and other people around in this panel. I think to begin with, I would like to say, if we are talking about children, then there are two ways to look into this aspect. One is the sense of guilt. The sense of guilt because I am part of the generation which has actually, which is living off the resources of my grandchildren and their grandchildren. So kind of we are, I always keep on saying that we are kind of a credit card generation, that we are already using Earth's resources, including water, forest, and biodiversity, that actually our grandchildren were supposed to use. So if I make it a bit simpler, then we at this point of time, you know, just in 10 years, what the situation on Earth is like, and not very different in India or many parts of Odisha to you know, to say, is that we will be having half of the water resources that we'll be actually needing. So that means that we would have consumed almost double of the water that we were supposed to. So that is, you know, sort of a resource that we are using beforehand. So that is a sense of guilt that I carry with me while I talk about water and climate change. But then the second aspect is also the sense of pride, that I am perhaps from the last of the generations that have lived with the environment to an extent that I can understand the nuances of it. I can understand how biodiversity actually plays a role in shaping not only our own lives, but the present, but also the future. So if I go by this, then citing some examples, I can see the development of generations that are no more in real sense concerned about or are aware of what the earth means. Like there is one bookish education and there is one practical education. So when I would after coming from the school jump into a river and bathe freely without any fear of any kind of you know, pollution or anything, then I was having a you know, a time interacting with nature. So when I was, you know, climbing a tree and plucking mango when I was a young person, a child, then I was actually interacting with the nature. But my own children have actually not only lost that skill, but they have also lost that knowledge, that interest. And that means we have successfully transformed a human civilization from being, you know, that in harmony with nature to that of something being only, you know, studying nature in the books. So I would say the children are missing out on a lot of fun, a lot of knowledge, a lot of life skills, and also a lot of visionary, you know, capabilities. So their imagination of the world is getting squeezed into tabloids, getting squeezed into internet, and getting squeezed into the Google Baba. So I think if we really want to go beyond this, then we have to understand that these children are not concerned if we have eliminated almost 83% of the wildlife during just the last 35 years, because they don't really understand that the wildlife is so much important. They think, you know, using chemical pesticide to, you know, produce food, or, you know, buying a bottle of water to drink is absolutely no problem. But then I understand that what problem it is. So I think that is where I would say that there is a huge gap between what we should have taught uh, by naturally living with a world, which of course I won't blame anybody, because that is how human civilization has developed, and we have actually somehow conveniently thought that the gray infrastructure is going to give us something that is called modernity. There is something called progress, and the green and blue infrastructures are just to be exploited. So my concern to begin with is, if my children look a forest or a river bank as a plot for picnicking, then that is where my education is failed. if they start looking all that as a part of the ecosystem that sustains them, not only now, but in times to come, in centuries to come, then I think my activism or my research or my organizing, mobilizing has helped. So my initial point would be how uh, how as adults that carry the guilt of not being able to do as much as we should have as a larger society could actually now begin to reverse this kind of education that we have given, and basically to learn to de-learn that you cannot survive on mobile apps. Of course you can definitely predict better monsoon, but you cannot distribute rainfall through apps. So technology that actually we are now introducing and infusing our children into, like we are now talking about coding from very early ages, so that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But then my problem is if I start thinking that in fact many of the younger generations have started, if apps can solve all our problems, if that is what we start thinking, then definitely I am into a deep trouble. So what I would say is we need to learn to de-learn and to say that yes, apps are helpful as long as the greatest technology that is nature is actually there to help you and to actually maintain in a way that you don't destroy that beyond your capacity to recover it. So I think that is where we need a lot of work to do. I'm certainly not going into statistics at the moment because the platform is more on how to educate and how to build something to bring our children, our youth into a sort of a common learning. But then statistics are really scary. They are developing almost by minutes, and we all know that we are already doomed. So I think that is what the children now need to know, not actually with an intention to scare them, but definitely with an intention to tell them to stay prepared. And staying prepared is not enough anymore. Like Odisha has been at the forefront of disaster response, and it has definitely sort of invited or earned a lot of laurels for that. But then this is the time of resilience. This is a time of thinking beyond just response. So water scarcity, yes, there. Water scarcity is going to be sort of uh, fair share. But then what are we going to do? Are our taps enough? Are we taking our younger generations to think that water comes out of taps and paddy comes out of the super malls, the markets? No, I think that is where I would say that is a challenge that we need to take. So I would like to discuss more on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ranjan sir. You made very pertinent points. You started with the credit card and approach the sense of guilt, biodiversity protection. You talked about how we need to actually shift our bookish education to real education. You talked about how picnic approach to learning nature needs to be shifted, and learning to de-learn, and how nature is the greatest technology that is around, that needs to be understood by being part of it, not necessarily withdrawing from it. Ecological limit thing that you have talked about, within the limit what we can do. So essentially very important points in the introductory remark, and definitely would like to learn some of those statistics, even though they might sound scary. As you say, they are improving or they are increasing hours or by hours or by days. Thank you, Ranjan sir, for that, for setting the tone that why it is very, very important to embed nature into our education. Ava ma'am, Ava Mishra ma'am, I would like to come back to you. You have been a development sector professional, working on issues of development, on sustainability, taking forward UNDPC work. You are someone who is an anthropologist by training, and now you are focusing on climate resilience as well. So how do you look at the discussions we have had with Dhal sir and Ranjan sir on the challenges of environmental education. That is one question. And second question, how do you look at that education? People say education is catalyst for sustainability. And within that education, environment is central to sustainability, environmental education. So how do you see the state of environmental education today, either in schools or in colleges or in practices or in government policies? And what do you see? Where does it stand and where should we go? And if you have any comment on that, or whatever that you have gathered from your vast experience, would like to share on how people are aware about environment and how people are scared about environment. From awareness, we should actually, it is coming to a level of warning as well. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Professor Kamal. And on the onset, I would also like to thank the MP Rajya Sabha, Mr. Sujit Kumar, for giving us a platform where we talk about such important issues. I would like to also greet my panelists, co-panelists, Professor Dhalsal, Ranjan Panda, Ranjan Mahanti also. And hope we have a good learning session today. As we are discussing about education, and be it a small child or an elder learner, we all per se are students, and specifically when we look into the environment, because I'm sure my grandfather sitting at home would be also thinking about where this coronavirus came from. And that virus is also part of the environment. Now, so education is something which is ongoing, and it starts the day we born and it will end with us on the day we die. Uh, but when we look at the environment, as Professor Dhal said or Ranjan said, is something which is borrowed from our next generation. And so a child is a future, and so we need to be concerned about what they will inherit. And in the similar way, the children today needs to also understand what type of environment we are leaving behind for them. uh, so, and in specifically when we think about climate change is changing the patterns of our livelihoods, the patterns with which we, our natural habitats existed. Because today morning only I was reading an article where they're saying the monsoons, the snowfall has started, but they're also saying the glaciers are melting now in the Himalayas. So we really, really need to look at and think about what is it there. And this is something which we all need to talk about. We need to get educated. And we need, and in this digital media, as Ranjan rightly said, we have become more of Google babas, where we, for every small thing, we just Google and think that what is written there um, is all what we need to know. But sometimes we also forget that it is just one opinion, it has many other things. So education, in terms, needs to be very, very continuous. It needs to also upgrade itself, and it needs to be practical also. So when we think about environment, as Ranjan and Praful also mentioned, we need also to connect with them. Somewhere in our education system, somewhere that disconnect has happened. Let's take an example of how the um, innovation used to happen. Innovation used to happen when we were in the field, we were facing a difficulty. But now what we happens is somebody is bringing up a problematic statement, into a laboratory. We are not doing it in a normal environment. So that is very, very important. And I think it is very important to also look at the various team champions which we have on the climate change, maybe Greta. I've also been informed that there is one young boy of 10 years old in Manipur who actually is talking about spring revival in Manipur in areas. So now, anywhere, anytime, it is very, very important for us to understand. And it also is important to understand uh, where the problems are coming from. Somewhere in the system, the education has become a mark giving or mark taking activity. I'll just give you an example of how we are approaching it. We say 8-mark questions in CBSE education for environmental study. It's a part of the sciences. 8 marks. So what do we learn within that 8 marks? We understand how many rivers were there and other things. We forget that the river flooding happens and the wind, okay, we also understand something about river flooding, but how it happens, where it happens, why it happens, that's something that detailing is not understood by our young generation, because we have crammed up so many things within our learning, that is our textbook learning, that we have forgotten about how to connect with the nature and learn from nature. uh, yes, there have been a lot of work which is being done. There are organizations like Mr. Dhal is leading or Ranjana is leading, where they go around, talk about, Ranjan talks about water, Prafulla Dhalla talks about forestry, and they all talk about it. They also go do a lot of plantations, they do water saving, but somewhere we also are also doing it in silos. We're not bringing in it connect. So what we really need to do is, for any of the sustainable development goals which the UN and the has agreed upon with 190 nations, starting from poverty, reducing the poverty, zero hunger, to water conservation, to reducing child mortality. Everything is a part and parcel of our education system, because if we bring everything together, the livelihood aspects will be maintained, our way of living would improve, because we are overusing everything. Today, plastic is found everywhere. Plastic is found, we do chemical waste is found everywhere. Somewhere we have lost the sense that what is good for us, and how do we take it. So we need to relearn, and that is where the whole education system needs to gear up and support our learning, our reconnecting with environment. Thank you so much. Over to you, Kamalakant.
Ava ma'am, thank you for making it simple, straightforward, and environment is borrowed, developing and connecting with Ranjan Panda sir, who talked about the credit card generation, and connecting to the Manipur's Lishipriya Kangujam, the girl who is talking about that I am not Greta Thunberg of India. I have started my movement beforehand. So this is very, very exciting times because of social media, and young people are raising their voices. As we look at social media and technology as something which actually becomes harmful, and the people become criminal centric, or they develop crime mentality. At the same time, social movements are also being launched through digital mediums, and we learn about them. Thank you so much for telling about that. We need to, as Professor Dhal was talking about and Ranjan sir was talking about, we need to go beyond and do something. From environment approach, we have to go to climate change approach. And then Professor Ranjan sir was saying, from picnic approach of understanding nature, we have to actually go and actually understand nature as being part of it. And you were telling that, yeah, as a public policy expert, you are telling we should go beyond silos and we should rather work in collaboration. So with these very interesting points and insightful points, may I come to Ranjan Mohanty sir to understand, because you are a development professional with experience in broad sectors, broad segments in Odisha and beyond. How do you see these issues panning out, and where do you see environmental education is going ahead, and what can be done, and what is being done, what are being done? Are they enough, or do you need to do something else as well? Over to you, around 6 minutes, sir. Ranjan Mohanty, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Kamalakant Das. Let me thank to Honorable Member of Parliament Sujit ji, and thanks to my co-panelists, Abha Madam, Mr. Ranjan Panda, Dhala Babu. Thanks everyone. I think many things have come up now, particularly when it comes to the education and environment. See, and linking it with again to the SDG, it is very good that now today we are linking it with the SDG. So I look from two perspectives. One is what is happening at micro level and what is happening at macro level also. Because when we are talking regarding SDG, it becomes the responsibility of the state. It becomes the responsibility as community or as a responsible citizen also to see that the SDGs are achieved. And if we talk about the education, again, children's education, I will come to the where we are, because many things all our co-panelists have already discussed. It may be the global temperature increase, it may be the oceans have warmed, it may be the global emissions of carbon dioxide have increased. Many things are there. Even if Ranjan Pandajit was talking about water also. So many things are happening and we all know it. So I do not want to go to all these things.
You talk to
and coming to
Arun, you talk to Pranati?
Coming to the targets actually linked with the education and environment, I just want to highlight that thing and where we are. So if you just 2-3 things I would like to emphasize here. If we are talking about the target 4.7 of SDG, which talks about ensure that all runners acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, including, among others, through education for sustainable development and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, etc. So I don't want to read more things. This is being given when we are talking about SDG and education also, because it is very much linked to the sustainable development. And another one thing just I would like to linking to again SDG. See, that is target 13.3 also talks about improve education, awareness raising, and human and institutional capacity on climate change mitigation, adaptation, impact reduction, and early warning. So, and many other things are there also. I do not want to go details into all these things. I was today, when talking about education policy, many things have come up there also. Why I am talking about the policy? Because proper policy also needs, appropriate policy also need when we are talking about achieving the target, achieving the SDG target. That is a major things. And even if you look into the new education policy, the vision of new education policy, it is mentioned that instills skills, values, and dispositions that support responsible commitment to human rights, sustainable development, again I am quoting sustainable development, and living and global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. So when we are about, even if when we are talking about environment also, it is definitely the children's total environment where a child lives. So when we are talking about sustainable development also, SDG goals, definitely education plays a very, very, very big role. And many things actually Abha Madam was telling regarding Manipur. Even if we have experienced, even if in my organization, Peacock also, we have experienced many things. Many things means we have promoted, say, Eco-Savers Youth Network, who are doing bird nest, we are doing plantations and all these things. Even if, as we were talking that many plantations, even in schools, we have now the eco clubs. But now the time has come, whatever we are doing, I think Kamalakant ji was raising that thing, whatever we are doing, whether they are also connected or not, we are also connected or not. And another one thing, the most important thing, that definitely through our education system, maybe our education system, maybe our different things, maybe the impact of consumerism, you can tell. Now the children are being disconnected from the nature. I think Ranjan Pandaji was mentioning that thing. The children are they are disconnected from the nature, which I think even if I was looking at our education policy, there is another one point this time has come, that the curricular integration of essential subjects, skills and capacities. That is one thing is new education policy, and which talks about introduction of contemporary subjects such as artificial intelligence, design thinking, holistic health, organic living, environmental education, global citizenship education, etc. at relevant stages. Sometimes we talk that which is the relevant stage, whether a baby, a kid, whether he or she, whether needs to be taught about the environment or not. Yes, I believe yes. We have to design in such a way that from the kid stage to the higher stage, it needs to come. Again, I agree to Prafulla Babu that yeah, it is not only education within the curriculum. See, I have remembered in my young days also, we were doing, I don't know whether it is happening now or not, youth integration camps were being done, where we are going to forest and looking at the flora and fauna. Even if now even if in this education policy they are talking about 10 days internship, but they are particularly it is mentioned that it is trade and other things, some other things, but not environment. But all these things, I think when we are talking about achieving the particularly sustainable SDG and linking it to the education for children, I think number one is we need to review the policies what are existing, and whether there is need of changes in policies or not. Again, we have policies, but what are the implications levels? What is happening at the community level? What is happening at the village level? What is happening at the children level? And we all are talking, even if Ranjan Panda was telling that regarding the digital platform, it has put all the children into a very unsafe condition now. That is also part of the whole environment. That needs to be very seriously thought up. And we are now. I was looking at one news. Children are going to the hilltop to just listen the education to get the education. So okay, technology is very good. I appreciate, but whatever technology is coming up and all these things, so it needs to be child friendly also. What type of technology children need to use so that they can learn properly? So that is a major concern. I think we need to. Another one thing I think Ranjan Pandaji was talking, I am totally agree with him regarding the food consumption. STG also talking about the consumption and all these things. So what we are teaching the children, every corner, even if now you go and find it in the rural areas also, the fast food, the junk food. So this is coming up very, very concerned with, very it has reached to a warning level. And if we are not going to stop all these things, educate the children regarding this also. And now they have talked about the organic living. I don't know how it is going to be reflected in the curriculum and all these things. If it is reflected properly, it is very good. So because there are certain policies, we need to look how these are going to be, implemented through the curriculum also. Because when we talk, we need to talk about that organic living. Maybe even if we need to talk, because these eco clubs are in the schools. Because even if we are talking that what recommendation we should give, eco clubs, but we need to look into that, whether these eco slums, how they are functioning and what education the children are going there. So it is both way. It has to come within the curriculum from say, even if from LKG to, because even if the child learns from the mother's womb, there is a saying that the child, because first when a child born, he or she talks that ki ma, mother. So from the beginning, a child has to be taught, the child has to be educated, maybe because the community has a great role, the family has a great role, and the school has also a great role, the whole policy has a great role. We have to see at what stage, at what level we need to educate children, what things. So that needs to be very seriously, we need to think, like food consumption thing I also talked about. And so even if knowing their own, what I was telling, that they are disconnected, even if Abha madam was raising that point, children are disconnected. Yes, children are disconnected due to many reasons, many impacts. So now we need to look into those things also, how the children will be again connected to their soil, again connected to their earth, again connected to their origin. I think that education will give that link.
Right. Thank you, sir. We'll come back to that for your next in the next round of discussion. We'll definitely come back to how children needs to be naturally inclined towards nature, because we have created a plastic generation of children, synthetic children, and we can say adulterated the products, all that we are pumping into the market. And children are the most vulnerable section of the society at one level, and they are the future generation as well. So a future generation cannot continue to remain as vulnerable. So next round of discussion, we'll have 3 minutes intervention from each one of the panelists. The first one was around 6-7 minutes. So 3-minute intervention from Professor Prafulla Dhal. Where do you see that we are doing wrong? What can be done? If that is the question, is what should be done? If there is a specific recommendation from you, 3 minutes, your time starts now, sir.
I think now the discourse is really warmed up.
Yeah.
And, let me just put my points seriously. When I said digital thing, that was my experimentation. I entirely agree with Ranjan Bhai and Ranjan Pandaji and Abha Misraji. Because that's not the right mode of education. It doesn't give content, doesn't give exercise, nothing. So I'm entirely agree with that. So that's not the point. See, 3 points what I would like to pinpoint here. When we say child education and environment, we see environment as a pedagogical subject, environment as a vision, SDG and other things. And when you bring the children in between, children is both as a as an actor to play the role here in between, and how it should happen. See, vision setting is not very, very important at this point of time, because we have enough policies, enough things are there. What is needed is how to take those policies to the last mile in realizing the objectives. And to have that, out of my experimentation for last a decade, I see there are fundamental shifts that needed to be done. One is, from charity mode of education or passive mode of environmental education, we have to move to fundamental skill building educations, because environmental education is also livelihood, life, and job. So unless we have the connectivity in these two, the demand and the curiosity of the children or interest of the children taking environment as a core subject will not emerge. That is one part of the story. The second one, what I'm going to tell you is that, there are, integrations are there. See, when you say disconnection to connection requires a transition. And this transition somewhere is not designed as on date to take the things ground, because it requires finance, it requires strategy, it requires modalities kind of things. All the people talk about sweeping kind of things, because I work on children, or I work on education, or I work on the SDG. whatever things are there, we keep on talking about that. Working with the community for last 2 years in this, backward community, what I realized, a transition is need, and transition need time. We don't give time to the things. If you understand the environmental education understanding at the Niti Aayog or the Government of India level, if you come down to the Bhubaneswar or state government level, if you come down to the district level, and if you come to the state school, there's a major shift, and by the time it read the objects is completely missing. So what is needed is we should have a clear shift, and this transitional plan has to be there in the place, and it should be given time. It cannot be overnight achieved something called the things. As you said, I have already mentioned about, we need to have a fundamental program, because policies and visions have already said a fundamental program on climate, national climate education program, where we should have the content area and the methodological area should be clearly defined, which has not happened, unfortunately. Even NEP 2020 is silent on these things. If you just see the measurement of the SDG things and children's consciousness, that, because I have seen 2 examples I'm giving to you. Under the Green Campus program that CRP has done, our idea is basically to take green issues to the school children to develop their understanding and bring a quality education to the existing stream of education. What has happened in places like Rayagada, Koraput, Kalahandi, Kandhamar, people are coming with innovative solutions that is internationally acknowledged. I had never thought that they can come up with the cottage industries, over the natural resources available, the business ideas. I had never thought that they will come up with the waste, from waste they can bring the sanitizers. So I think that is where we lack environmental education, because what has happened today, even the mainstream education talks about, we read, go a structural basis and go do elementary, secondary, higher, and then go on to the technical education and professional education and think for the jobs. I want disconnection in this. Unless you have this disconnection to connect with the masses, those have been disconnected already traditionally long years, then we cannot have these 2 goals can take together. If you see the roadmap is very clear. By 2030, the predictions, the realities have been already in our front. And those realities has to be communicated, made the students understand. Say, for example, water. Water is not as an object that is a survival things only today. It is also source of conflict. Source of conflicts at every level. And conflict is one area where children lose the basic educational ecosystem. So I think we have to understand the whole thing in a totality, how climate change has thrown the challenges to rebuild, re-strategize, and create a transitional stage. Then only we can see, as I said, we have been living in it, borrowed time, because we have already our grandchildren's resource we are using, our grandchildren's kind of things. That is not been stopped today. 54 billion tons of resources every year you are using to create $80 trillion economy in the world. By 2050, we're expecting 162 billion, tons of resources. Just imagine what will happen. So the human-induced climate change must be stopped. We need a behavioral change. We need an attitudinal change. We need a common action. We need campaigns. We need advocacy. We need everything together. Children as a victim, children as an active citizen to deal with these 2 should be in our education stream. That is what is my point. Because I think the commitment, if you see the national government or international government, the commitment in terms of the finance is completely deficit. We need almost 533 trillion rupees today, and we have been deficit around 2.9 trillion annually till 2030. So I think this is not the statistical things consumption. This is what the trend I'm saying here. So environmental education today is not as one of the subset of the curriculum. Today it's a fundamental thing, because we are aiming for circular economy after some years. We're aiming for environmental job, we're aiming for green jobs, and we're aiming for so many things. So students and youths have to take this movement ahead. That is what is my point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You made very pertinent points, Professor Dhal. I'm aware of your work where you have been proposing how to make green entrepreneurs and also zero budget entrepreneurs. You have been doing some inspiring work at the ground level. So, and this everything is coming. You have said 3 points that environment education is also about livelihood, career, and also business. And the transition, it has not been well designed. This needs to be calibrated well, and there needs to be a national climate education program. And then you are actually, I'm reading in between lines, you said SDGs need to be central to environmental education, because and climate change has to be central to environment education. It is not just about talking about how our environment works around us. So because if you look at the NCRT, National Curriculum Framework, and book of class 3, class 4, class 5, they also talk about environment around us, which talks about biodiversity, talks about animals, talks about the rain pattern, all that, through story and narrative methods. But we need to go beyond that as well. So Professor Dhal, your points are very, very well taken, and they are in a way giving us a way forward. Next, to coming to Ranjan Panda sir. You have been working on water. You have been talking about active citizens of young people who can be change agents in environmental citizenship. So, in keeping all that discussion, what has been happening now and going ahead, what do you see needs to be done? You are someone who has been very, very proactive in the sector. Where do you see we have the gaps, and how should we go about it, creating a thriving SDG, climate change, and environmental and water communication, if I add your specialty into that?
Thank you. I think some points are very valid points have been made by Ranjan Bhai, Prafulla ji, and Ava. There are, I would say, to fundamentally, approach this. I was part of one of the regional committees which was built to develop the environment education curriculum way back in the early 90s or 2000, late 90s, early 2000, and that time also these same concerns were raised by people like me, that children are basically getting away from environment, and thus came this environment education curriculum. So NCRT books and all were, framed. But I am afraid environment has been destroyed more rapidly after that. So if we actually want to take our learning from all this, then there are 2-3 ways I think we should approach. If my point should be, the very first thing, how are the children being asked to look at the environment? And one aspect that I'm afraid, and I always keep on telling, is this entire business of tree plantation. I think it's very good that we plant trees, but then it's very dangerous that everything around environment centers around planting trees. So that is something I have been talking. Environment is not planting trees, and for that one needs to understand, and the children, most importantly the children and the youth, they need to understand that environment is a broader ecosystem. It's not about planting a sapling. Of course, it is very good that you plant trees. It's very good that you make, your avenue plantations. Everything is welcome. But then something that the children need to understand is the role of natural forests as a carbon sink, as a biodiversity enricher, as a food hub. The World Food Program that got the Nobel Peace Prize this time. Its director said that if until the COVID vaccine is here, around, food is the vaccine. So I think, and that food, if we actually go, whatever we are talking about, green organic way of living. So we have to first look into what is organic. It's not about, staying in a concrete house, playing with air conditioners, with going with cars. That's fine. We have to all do that. But then the real organic culture is being promoted by the indigenous communities, the tribal communities, the villagers. So I think the very first thing I have been saying to children, to youth, is that try to understand the sustainable cultures. Just the books are not enough. So there are practices that already exist in our own backyard, in our own Odisha, in everywhere throughout the world. At least a quarter of the forest, natural forest, is being protected by the indigenous communities, and that's the greatest carbon sink thus far compared to other forests. So that is something. These linkages need to be understood. Then the second thing I would like to say is we are all swayed away by many global statistics. I also do, we all do. But then we don't have enough local statistics. We haven't generated that much because everybody speaks of the third world war is going to be around water. But nobody actually wants to talk that the common water body by my side of my house is being encroached and there is a war going on. There is someone is using that and they are directly in conflict with the market complex. So I think these kind of local educations on environment and on the nuances of environment, on the diversity of environment is actually missing. So that is the second point I would like to highlight. So what we need to develop is actually the data set, using all your technology to develop, to GIS monitor degradation of your water resources, to GIS monitor your GPS monitor your degradation of your natural forest and biodiversity. That is where somehow our technologies fail. Our technologies are very, very, proud of larger things. But when it comes to these nuances of nature, our technologies actually don't work a lot. So I think we have everything to monitor even private data of people, but we don't have a monitoring system of the natural water bodies in India. So we just have, survey that excludes them as much as they can. So I think that is where we need to develop a lot, and children need to be educated on that. The third thing is disaster response, as I told earlier, is not everything about climate change. Disasters are man-made. Disasters are going to increase. In fact, 90% of these extreme events are due to climate change, and they are going to grow. But then there is a resilience building, and that resilience building, as I have been telling, is about developing a citizenship, a child, a young person who actually, no matter where he works, what he is educated about, but he or she is a green citizen. He or she is actually capable of living with nature, because what we want or not, the delights will need a boat during monsoon after a few years. So they cannot so the cities will require boats to travel on roads. So we all have to live with this disasters unless we act. And no matter how much we act, the kind of global greenhouse gas emissions we have already historically done, things are not going to settle down before at least 2100. So we are already in a crisis, and we have to make our children capable of handling those crises by building resilience and education. That's why for me is not this mark based, that's fine, but the grades for living with nature, grades for learning with nature, I think somewhere down the line we need to introduce them. Thank you.
Very, very important points. The linkages that needs to be established with our organic life, with indigenous community and rural communities. And second point, and we need to develop local statistics, and also nuances of nature needs to be captured by technology. And third point is disaster response is inadequate. When you talk about climate change, we need to have a resilience mindset and resilience building and green citizenship. So thank you for this three important points. We're capturing them as well and writing them. Coming back to Abha ma'am. So about where do you see we go from here? We know what challenges we are facing. We have all four experts, including you, have identified the challenges we are facing. And how do you see, as a policy analyst, policy maker, and policy implementer, and also someone a development expert, how do you see we are going from here, and what challenges and how do see challenges are there? What solutions would you provide? Maybe three solutions. What three solutions would you provide in environmental education? Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, and very, very pertinent, points raised by Professor Praful Dhal, Ranjan Panda. It's very, very important and very, very pertinent. Specifically, when we look at the future where we are heading into. Now, Kamal, you have asked me to say where are we heading it. First and foremost, children have to be, interested in actually doing uh, field-based research, field-based learning. Starting from a small child, it's very important that we start introducing him to a field-based learning. That is something which we need to introduce. My sister, and to give you an example, my sister stays in US, and there's one thing which happens is during the summers or the spring season or something, they are taken out and actually taken to various habitats around their schools, where they are taught the different varieties of plant. Like Ranchan was saying, we see the animals in the zoos, and now we have forgotten where to see the animals in the open fields, so, or the jungle. So that's something which we should introduce in our schools. How we do it, that is something which we would have to talk about. Picking up from Praful, very important thing is, we cannot have it education as a standalone silo topic, or a module. It needs to be integrated. If we are talking about sociology, we need to talk about that in there. If we are talking about science, we won't have to talk about the science of environment. So it is very important that it is a holistic, and our curriculums have to bring that nuances. When we are talking about polyester or plastic in a chemistry class, also we also need to tell them what is the impact of it on environment. So that is also very, very important. The third and the final thing which I would like to say is, we still have a lot of people and children who drop out from schools. And COVID-19, the current situation, like Ranjan is saying, we are going to have extreme situations, would also lead to more children dropouts. And if the children dropout happen, our vocational training needs to be sustainable and also climate friendly. We cannot just jump from a situation to another situation where we are creating more vulnerabilities. So we need to think about how to use our resources sustainably within uh, within the limited parameters of that particular given area. Specifically, when we talk about water, land, and air. Air pollution is also going to look at what is happening in Delhi. So the children need to understand that. And somewhere when we teach children how this is happening, we also tell them how to use public transport rather than private transport, and working on it. So with these 3 points, I would end here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abha ma'am. Very sharp, to the point, field-based learning, making people understand their impact of their work and environment, and our vocational training need to be customized, and also needs to transform itself towards a sustainable and to become sustainable and climate friendly. Thank you to those sharp points. And within 3 minutes, you gave that your way forward. So Ranjan sir, three more. We are looking for 3 more points from you, and you have 3 more minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Kamalakant ji. Actually, first thing I agree to all the points which has come up from Prafulla Babu, Ranjan Panda, then Abha Madam. I do agree with all the points. Just 2-3 points I would like to add here. One thing, I think we need to see that how the children and the young people will develop a very firm ecological mindset. So for that reason, whatever actions required, we need to do it, or whatever education things required, we need to do it. First, we need to develop a ecological mindset and use it to overcome today's environmental challenges. So that even with a very, they need to come out with a very proactive attitude and a strong commitment also. So that is one thing, one point I would like to mention. And I think Dhola was telling that lots of policies are there. I was talking about new education policy also. There are some points which talks about environment things, and then organic livelihood and all these things. But the whole thing is that now actually we need micro level action. I'm telling one thing, micro level action is very much required. And when I am talking about micro level actions, it is involving children. It is involving children, and let us empower children with knowledge and also activities also, because they need to act to learn also. What type of learning? Ranjan Pandaji was telling that regarding the water and all these things. Even if we need to teach our children how to develop a rainwater harvesting system in their school, that we need to do. And even if suppose say we have found that there are many, we have developed in our project area, the kitchen gardening. We need to look into that also, where the children also can learn and can get the, the nutritional food also. Even if when that we can talk regarding strengthening eco clubs, teaching them regarding, so it has to look into from an inclusive perspective. We cannot look the environment issue in isolation, because when we are talking about environment, we have to, because we talk many things, it is all surroundings of a child, and we need to, it has to come within the curriculum, and it has to go beyond the curriculum. So both the things we have to keep in mind. And the most important thing I would like to stress here, even if Prafulla Dalji, he has talked about a national environment education plan, I 100% I agree with you. And most important thing that we need to invest more in education. Otherwise, when we will have the policy, we have legislations, we have many provisionings, but if we will not have a proper investment, adequate investment in for education, then we are going to reach nowhere. So this much. Thank you very much.
Very quick 3 points. We should develop ecological mindset. That is what you have actually improvised upon what Ranjan Panda sir talked about, being green citizenship, and taking it to micro level action orientation involving children. Kitchen garden was just one example. And third was like investment in education broadly and environmental education specifically. So 3 good points. So thank you so much, all our panelists. There are some questions which have come to me. I will ask questions. These questions are also asked to specific panelists from our experts here. So to start with, Professor Prafulla Dhal, the question is, you are someone who is from the corporate, and also you are someone who is an academic, also a policy maker and policy analyst as well. How do you see the role of corporate? We have been talking about the role of government. How do you see the role of corporate in promoting environment education, bringing them into children, or using CSR money to bring that value? So do you have any comment on that? You are mute. You are on mute, sir, Professor Dhal.
Yeah, I think this is a brilliant question, because 3 things I would like to respond. One thing is total estimation what has happened in the national in Niti Aayog has put it, and Government of India has put it, everybody has put it, 6 trillion dollar of money required for the SDG by 2030. So this cannot be made by the public source or the public or the government. So $1.18 trillion is the corporate partnership people are talking about. And the corporate has 4 wings, how they can take it. One is, now if you know that there is a law that after profit and before profit. Before profit, that is CER, corporate environmental responsibility, which is the percentage of money to be spent in the education, health, environment, in the periphery where the work is. That is from the capital investment that you are going. It varies from 1.5% to 5%. So it is a different kind of thing based on your size of investment. The second one is buzzword CSR, corporate social environment, corporate social responsibility. So what is important is here the culture. It's not 2% mandatory money that can give you the environment or can give you the results. The corporate culture has to be changed, and I've seen some corporates have started doing these things, but it should come more rapidly and more in scale. Because, for example, at JK CSR, I have tried for last 3 years, and it is coming up as carbon positive and sustainability. Entire our budget is on sustainability initiatives, be it reforestry or the spring shade or the solar adaptation or solar electricity, green campus in the schools, colleges, youth for SDG. See, this requires 2 things. I'm telling you very clearly. One is, when you talk about environment and education parlance, you need to have a leader who can organize the education in the ground, as Ranjan Bhai has said very clearly. Leadership is very, very important. And leadership now. And corporate has funds, windows to support, and it requires knowledge and knowledge-based leadership, which corporates are lacking to my mind. I think that needs to be done. That is one thing. The second one is a teacher. Teacher is an important infrastructure in the entire education edifice. Today, we don't have the environment teacher, as Ranjan Pandaji had told, because we are close friends, we keep on sharing. We don't have the teachers see the education on the environmental perspectives. And I think corporates should come forward and do this thing. And that is one of the effort that we are taking up, teaching teachers massively under the climate reality and JKCSR partnership. We're taking large numbers, giving the teachers trainings across the country. So I think these are the initial steps where corporates can play a big role. For example, water. I think one of the things that adopting innovations, the technology in their own production, supplies and base to reduce the environmental cost to the maximum. The other one is promoting the environmental things by creating the structures. And that is what JKCSR is doing as one of the company I'm talking about. But as I've seen at the member of the industry, association, ICC, other things. But I think this needs a huge shift, and this also need a public cry for that. Only that happens, it cannot going to give the result. Otherwise, it will be evade more things. The structural issues like sustainability reports, sustainability measurement, SDG planning, SDG localizing SDG with the government programs, convergence board. This is what is knowledge. We want knowledge leaders, and corporates need knowledge leaders, but that is fund. I think let me very clearly tell you that the mandatory CSR or CR fund cap is very, very less important for me rather than a leader who can pull, organize and deliver. This is what is the need of the hour. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that comprehensive answer. And I think you have been candid enough to admit and accept that there is a huge gap of knowledge leadership and environmental leadership in the corporate sector. And that goes as a message to all our young students watching in Xavier University and Sri Sri University that there is a huge possibility to become a sustainable leader. If you have a management degree or engineering degree, please feel free to contact Professor Dhal and one of our panels, or contact us as well to take it forward. Or coming back to Ranjan Panda sir, and building on what Professor Prafulla Dhal was saying, same question to you. Where do you see, because corporates are considered greedy at one level, Second level, they're considered also, they're not looking at triple bottom line, which is the people, planet, and profit. And profit comes first, and people come, or planet comes next. So, and sustainable development goals have not been embedded into many of their functions and operation activities. Professor Dhal has been arguing that sustainability cannot be, or CSR or CER cannot be one activity. It has been embedded into the strategy. So, where do you see, Ranjan sir, a role of corporates, because they have money, they have responsibility as well. Where do you see their role in areas that you have been working in, water, citizenship, also broadly into environmental education, and specifically on making green citizenship?
I think no matter how profit oriented they are, at the global level at least, there have been a lot of processes, including the UN, to rope in these corporates into financing SDGs, taking a larger role in the climate action. So because they are going to stay. So in one way, I think I would like to take it in a way that corporates have to be responsible from the beginning and not at the end. For example, the entire world is now phasing out from coal and fossil fuel. So in a way, the first responsibility for the corporate houses is to actually phase out, make a clear-cut phase-out plan from fossil fuel. So if that is the first thing they should do, then the second thing is that whatever they are doing, I think whatever climate action that they are supposed to do, they should not hide, and they should be very transparent. Something that is globally a big concern is that corporates are non-transparent, and they have other they have ways to manipulate the data, and because they have the resources and they have the control over a lot of politicians, so and they're financing elections largely nowadays. So that is something is being definitely discussed at the global forums as well. So corporates' responsibility are also in that sense. They also need to finance. If they are financing, if that is essential, then their finance to the politicians should also be green finances, and they should finance green politicians and not the regular politicians. So that is something that we are also discussing in another global forum. The third thing at the local level is that you need to comply with there is one very unique thing that it happens. We normally sort of cover a lot of environmental challenges or crimes, I would say, undercover. We just try to cover up with the larger bracket called climate change. So there are a lot of environmental responsibilities the corporates have back in our own state, back in this country, and everywhere. Like the palm tree, the palm oil industry destroying the Amazons, for example. So they have a lot of environmental crimes already doing everywhere. So this bringing these corporates into the dialogue definitely has a lot of challenges, but then that all this needs to be actually now factored in our climate action as well as in the local environmental actions. So corporates have to comply with what they have agreed to, what they have signed on environmental regulations, on to protect our water resources, to protect our natural forest, and to protect all our other common property resources. And most importantly, and the fourth point is corporates' responsibilities toward something that I always advocate, towards the local and indigenous communities, because the heritage that we carry now, whatever little is still alive, that we can call a green way of living, actually comes from these aboriginals, these local indigenous communities. So corporates should actually adhere to the UN standards and of course many banks also. We have worked with the World Bank, with the ADB on developing environmental safeguards, indigenous community safeguards. So there are a lot of already mechanisms that are existing, and corporates need to adhere to those and rather strengthen on that and protect the interests and rights of the local indigenous communities over the local natural resources. And otherwise, definitely they cannot be true climate actors.
Right. Thank you so much. Very pertinent 4 points. And phase out their fossil fuel plan, need transparency in their climate impact, and also look at the environmental responsibility of what they do in their activities at the local community. Uh, and so they should not destroy common property resources and the natural forest, and towards the local indigenous communities specifically, because UNESCO and others have identified them as endangered communities and endangered languages as well. So kind of UN Compact brings in quite a few number of CEOs to its platform to talk about SDGs and business. So thank you, Ranjan sir, for those quick 4 points. Now I would like to come to Ava Mishra-ji. You have same question. Uh, you are a development sector professional working largely with governments and also private sector as well. So we have talked enough about government. There are challenges at the bureaucracy, at the government, at policy making, at drafting, all those. And every one of you have given some suggestion or the other on how to move ahead. So what do you see the role of a role of corporate in this sector, in this segment of child education, environment, and green citizenship and climate change?
Yeah, thank you, Kamal. Uh, very pertinent remarks shared by Ranjan, and he's also highlighted where the corporates could do. Uh, just for your knowledge and also to bring in notice, the corporates are already moving towards certain things. Now, if I look at the Monte Protocol, which most the countries have signed in India itself, at least with the support from UNDP and the Ministry of Forest and Environment, 300 corporates have already relooked at their machineries and other things to ensure that there is less sludge or the whole mercury level in the waste is reduced. The second thing is, if you look at the Coca-Cola and HUL and many other places, they have also started taking some steps towards reducing the amount of plastics or recollecting, actually not use, but recollecting the plastics and proper disposal or usage or reuse for that. While said this, there is a still long way to go. It's a still long way to go, because even in today in the morning when we look at it, there is a news article in Orissa where I think one of the Nalco's ponds was how do you say it pardon.
Fly ash ponds, they breach.
Yeah, it was a breached, yeah, that was the word I was looking for. It was breached. So that is where the education about the whole sector is required within the children, so that when they grow up as professionals, be it in the vocational sector or the professional sectors, they are able to take care of it. That's one. The second thing is, like Ranjan mentioned, that we need to imbibe in everyday work what we are doing. So start with, okay, we need so much of material which is not going to be environment friendly? Then if we have to use it, then is there a possible way of reusing it? And if it is, there's no way of reusing it, can we recycle it? That whole the Professor Dhaljo mentioned was the circular economy is required. And what Mr. Ranjan Mohanty was saying, it is so important to now start speaking at the lowest level, because it is gone into the villages and other things. So my whole understanding is the CSR has to also start looking at its own processes, what it is doing within the company, within the periphery of the company, and also start bringing the communities, so that you also have this whole COVID-19 has taught us the importance of local, be it seasonal vegetables, local vendors, and local material. So this is what we need to do. And also see if there is a possibility, if you have a the company has quarters for the way, can we have reuse the water which is there? Can we also have renewable energy which can be utilized as power generation, rather than going in for coal based like Ranjan mentioned? And also look at the waste which is coming out. How to can we do it as use it, recycle it, and then properly dispose it? It is very, very important. So 4 quick points. One is resilience building, so we don't depend upon others, we know how to bounce back. It's very important. The corporates have to say, or else we will have the lockdown situation where thousands of jobs have been lost, we have lost GDP. So this is something which is going to, and environment is a key to all this whole resilience building. So we have to have eco-based system development. Second is, anything which we are producing, we need to see how much it has to be used, recycled, reused, and recycled. So that is there. Renewable energy is the crux. We need to think about it. We need to have greener buildings rather than energy guzzling buildings. We have to have the idea of green buildings have to come. Local materials usage in the buildings needs to come. The fourth is, all the chemicals which we are producing, somewhere we need to think about it, how good or bad it is, and this is to be inculcated within each of the students who are going to be our future citizens.
Thank you so much. Resilience, circular economy, renewable energy, and inculcation of impact of chemicals or products that we make. Thank you for those quick 4 points. So with those points, same question to ask to Ranjan Mohanty sir. So what role, you are someone who has worked on CSR, worked on different projects at local level as well. How do you see the role of the business broadly and corporate, those who are big corporates specifically, on the issue of children, education, environment, and climate change?
The first thing, I think, I do agree with all the points raised by my co-panelists. First thing, the corporates, we need to see that they must reduce the impact of the adverse impact due to their own business in the community and everywhere, because that I think that is the most important thing, as we are discussing, that reuse, recycle, whatever it may be. So they have to see that the impact, the adverse impact on the environment, if anything is coming up due to the business of the corporate, they need to see how it can be checked or it can be reduced. So that is number one point I would like to emphasize here. Second thing, relating to there are many activities are going on by CS corporates also, very good activities. Either they are doing directly, or they are doing with government, or they are doing also with CSOs, civil society organizations also. Many things are happening. Also at the same time, what I found sometimes, just at the sake of doing the CSR activities, the things are also happening. One-time thing or like that. So they need to major focus on the sustainable development thing, which contributes to the sustainable development. So that I think CSR need to think about it. It is not that going once, dropping something, coming back. Yes, that is also required as a charity, but they need to see also how the impact of their support, CSR responsibility, will sustainably impact the whole process of the development. They need to think. That is another one thing I would like to tell. And they can, regarding this environment education also, because I'm not going to the direct all other things, because there are many things needs to be discussed and needs to be thought of. Regarding environment education part particularly, either they can directly or as part of their social responsibility, with maybe local civil society organizations as their CSR responsibility, good civil society organizations, they can also plan how to educate the children regarding education and come out, as we are talking about now the micro level actions are required. Small model programs they can also develop. Like I was telling that, Ranjan Pandaji was telling that small things, say regarding water, like in school rainwater harvesting structure. If the CSR should come up, they can come up also. And sometimes government also may not do that. They can also identify those needs also, providing drinking water, providing all these things. So I think these are some of the points, and other points I agree. But finally, my opinion is they need to contribute the sustainability things. Otherwise, not only just at the sake of CSR activities, doing the things what is going on, let it go.
Right. Thank you so much. You identified 2-3 important points. Right, reduce the adverse impact, and CSR not for the sake of CSR but for impact, and then micro level education planning on some rainwater harvesting. And as all of us remember, that the Nobel Prize in Economics of Abhijit Banerjee, they got the experimentation that they carried out on poverty at a local level. So this experimentation can be carried out also on green citizenship and also on green life. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies who have joined to listen and watch our fantastic session. Our 4 experts have brought in their own experience, their own rights, and their suggestions how to make environmental education better. And there couldn't have been a better panel which could have deliberated with so much of openness and frankness, and also provide us action that should be taken at government, at community level, and at corporate level. Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Prafulla Dhal. Thank you, Ranjan Panda sir. Thank you, Abha Mishra ji. Thank you, Ranjan Mahanti ji. Thank you, everyone. And I, from MP office and from Honorable Sujit sir's office and from Kaling Kusum Foundation, give share profuse thanks and heartfelt thanks with everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Honorable MP and Kaling Kusum Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.